Forgive me, I'm in Mexico right now. Mexico has beautiful noises all the time, fireworks and roosters and kids. Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 42, right in the middle of COVID. What is up? This is Jason. Glad to have you here. If you've been here since the beginning of this channel, wow, how things have changed in the world and with me. If you haven't been here, here's the quick recap. 40 years old, I saw my third country outside the United States. Took a one-way ticket to Mexico City to see what digital nomad life would be like and whether I could handle that. Year later, 41 years old, I decided to sell everything and become nomadic and live outside the US, half the year. My goal was like 8 months a year being outside the US. 8 months later, I'm in Querétaro, Mexico, and COVID happened. So back to the US, still really new at travel at that point, so I wasn't going to try and stay abroad. 8 months later, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 42, right in the middle of COVID. Freaked out, had to kind of hunker down and figure out what that was all about for a while. We'll talk about that another day. Essentially a year to the day later, I went to Portugal for 3 months and decided, hey, I'm going to figure this out. And since then, I've spent about 6 months outside the U.S. each year, 6 months inside the U.S., and figuring out how to do type 1 diabetes along the way. So today I wanted to bring you 5 kind of mindfulness, woo-woo, head in the clouds tips, 5 things that I've learned along the way for managing my type 1 diabetes, whether I'm abroad, whether I'm outside the United States, or whether I'm inside the United States. If you're not in this kind of more Zen mindfulness frame of mind, give it a chance. Give it a try. I was never that way. I never identified with being woo-woo or any of those things, but I'm changing, and I think it's really helping. So here we go. First of all, learn to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness, to me, to paraphrase, got to change my CGM here shortly. Mindfulness to me is slowing down and taking stock of what's going on around you, what's happening inside you, looking deeper at your emotions, deeper at your feelings, and going past surface level and really digging in and not necessarily getting comfortable with those things, but understanding them, understanding where your fears come from, understanding where your self-consciousness comes from, understanding why you might break down at certain times for certain reasons, whether it has to do with type 1 diabetes or not. Really just slowing down and taking stock of what's going on inside your body, what's going on outside of you, what your triggers are, anything from your previous years of living or what's going on in your life now. Look up what mindfulness is. Learn to meditate a little bit, even if that's just sitting in your own skin for 5 minutes in silence and listening to the thoughts that are going on and really thinking deeper about them instead of just letting them go past. Mindfulness has been really helpful for me, and it's something that I continue to try and dive into. Number 2, to go along with that mindfulness is to grieve. This goes for any diagnosis, not just type 1 diabetes. You had a life that you knew and you had aspirations and goals, and those things are changing significantly. Take time to sit with that, respect it, feel it over and over again, cry. It's a big deal. Your life is changing. You can't just suppress those things. You can't just push those down and say, suck it up, I'm going to push through this. It's not healthy. It's not good for you. It's not good in the long run. Find people that will allow you to talk to them and work through those feelings, whether it's a professional or whether it's a friend that can just listen instead of trying to help you. But learn to grieve things that are changing in your life. Be able to set those aside and say, okay, that's what it was. Here's what it is. It's a form of closure. It's not necessarily always closure, but it goes back to that mindfulness thing of just taking the time, respecting that needs some care. It'll be helpful for you to do that and to give yourself the freedom to do that and allow yourself to cry and mourn and have some of those uncomfortable feelings that we don't like to have because we want to be strong and we need to push through, but it'll really help you. Number 3 is gratitude. It's different than mindfulness. Mindfulness is really paying attention to what's going on around you and what's going on inside of you. Having gratitude is literally stopping and saying, I'm overwhelmed. These things are overwhelming. I can't get around that. How can I shift that to something that's more positive? I'm not going to forget about these feelings. I'm not going to forget about these emotions, but how can I reframe my mindset to realize that I am grateful for so many things and that those things deserve more attention than the harder things in my life, because gratitude is something that has been proven over and over again in studies to change the way people view life and their outlook on life and their positivity and the way that they approach things. having gratitude every day and sitting down and saying, here's the things I'm thankful for in this moment. Here's the things I'm thankful for in my life. Here's the people, the places, the things, the opportunities that I have, even if your life's really hard, even if you're dealing with diagnoses or financial problems, you have things to be grateful for. And if you concentrate on those things more than you concentrate on the negatives, it's going to affect your life in a positive way. And it's going to help you get through those really tough times. So practice gratitude. Number 4 is to forget about perfection. Hopefully at this point in your life, you realize that perfection is unattainable in any aspect of our life. And trying to achieve perfection is just a very slippery slope and not a great thing to be trying to do. Talk to your endocrinologist, talk to your doctor, to your specialist in whatever you're dealing with, whether it's type 1 or something else, and get a target, get a range. Say, if I were to be able to stay in this range for the rest of my life with my averages, my A1C or my time in range over 3 months, is that good? Is that going to mean I'm going to live a long life without a lot of the repercussions of bad, of problematic diabetes management? When I first started, my A1C went from like 9 to just under 6 in 3 months. And my endocrinologist looked at me and said, dude, you got to lighten up. This isn't healthy. You've gone too far in the other direction. And he said, if you can live within this range for the rest of your life, forgive me, I'm in Mexico right now. Mexico has beautiful noises all the time, fireworks and roosters and kids. If you can stay in this range for the rest of your life, you're going to avoid the majority of those really bad diabetes complications that scare you from the day of onset or the day of diagnosis. You get scared into this, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose limbs, I'm going to lose my eyesight, I'm going to have all these problems. But in reality, if you can find that happy range and deal with the fluctuations and the highs and lows and realize that 1 or 2 bad days in a row or 2 or 3 bad hours in a row is not going to affect your big picture. Avoid that idea of perfection and lighten up on yourself. It's going to take some time to figure out your rhythm, and your rhythm's going to change, especially if you're traveling to new places or you're changing your regiment, or you're walking a ton and then you're sedentary for a while. These things are all going to change, and you have to have patience with that. So avoid that perfection trap. Number 5, take breaks from your robot parts. For me, currently on a insulin pump. I've also been on pens. We'll talk about that another day. If you are on CGMs and insulin pumps, literally schedule a break from those parts, whether it's 5 hours or if you can manage a whole day. Take a shower without anything on. Some people call it like a unicorn day, where you're changing you're changing your infusion set and you're changing your CGM, and just find those 4 or 5 hours in between where you say, you know what, I'll manage it with finger pricks and a pen, and therefore I can have those things free of my body and feel that. If you're of age and enjoying those things, have sex without your parts on. Like, plan that with your partner and say, look, I want to have that time where I can be as far away from my type 1 diabetes as possible and enjoy some of those things that we talked about grieving earlier. One of the reasons I didn't get on a pump right away is because I didn't want something connected to my body the whole time. It's a really hard thing to think about when you've never done it before. Now I'm much more comfortable with it, and my partner is too. But those moments of being whole again without being connected are really therapeutic. And if you've never experienced that, give it a try. Plan it into your schedule. Get on a cycle with when all your parts are changing, and look forward to having that window and celebrating it. Literally celebrate it. Like, take yourself out to dinner. Go out with friends and say, hey, this is a big moment for me. This only happens every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks. Maybe more often for you if you're really good at planning. But if you've never done that, it's a really nice feeling. And just one parting note here. Remember that a type 1 diabetes diagnosis, or any other major medical condition diagnosis, it shouldn't change the plans that you had. It shouldn't change the plans that you made or you were making. It's definitely going to change the execution. My goal was to be outside the U.S. 8 or 9 months a year, to use the U.S. as a home base, and really to be a digital nomad and to have flexibility and to be able to keep going. And that changed immediately when I was diagnosed. I go back to the U.S. every 2 months now to go to doctors and to make sure that my insurance is happy with me, and that I'm managing it right, so that if anything does happen while I'm outside the U.S., I'm covered. I have to carry with me 2 to 3 months worth of diabetes gear, including CGMs and pump supplies and things like that. That's hard. But my plan was to be nomadic. My plan was to experience the world and experience the people and grow based on those experiences. I literally had somebody ask me one day, you got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, like, you just gonna stop being nomadic and go back to the States? And I about fell over because that never crossed my mind. It wasn't a matter of this is a sentence that I'm gonna be riddled with. It was, I'm gonna figure this out. And it's not gonna be as easy. It's definitely gonna be harder, but you know, it's not a matter of changing your plans. It's a matter of changing the execution. So keep that in mind. Thanks for hanging out for this one. Got a little bit long maybe, but hey, this stuff's important. Slow down, have some gratitude, be mindful, take some breaks. I'm gonna have some more tips that do have a little bit more to do with travel. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And yeah, I will see you on the other side. Peace.